Hello and welcome everyone. I am your host Stefan Burns. Boom shakalaka. We just had a big earthquake strike Nevada. Thankfully, it was not bigger. There is a big earthquake swarm that's now occurring as a result. So we see here in the map area 44 earthquakes, and this is all just in the past 90 minutes, okay? So if you're watching this live stream on replay, we're covering this just within about an hour of this happening. So we had this magnitude 5.7, and then a lot of earthquakes popped off. We see that this 5.7 is the oldest earthquake in this sequence. 3.6 there, 3.3. If we look at the highest magnitude events, it's the 3.6, 3.4, 3.3 for the aftershocks. These are still coming in. Typically, you get an aftershock 1 magnitude less than the main shock for the strongest. So we could be looking at a mid-magnitude 4 earthquake within the next 2 hours, 2 days, somewhere in that time frame. But this is a significant event just to the southeast of Silver Springs, or in general, basically to the southeast of Reno, fairly close by. And because I posted an update on X, also known as Twitter, as soon as this happened, quite a lot of people have commented from these areas and surrounding areas saying that they felt the earthquake. So it's a 5.7, 5 kilometers down. These are the metrics that have been provided by the United States Geologic Survey, the USGS. But we got reports, at least just from my post on X, from Truckee, which is way over here, California. Also even down to, what was it? It was like something Pines. It's like pretty far down here, if I remember right. Pollock Pines right here, okay? We had a report, someone said they felt in Pollock Pines. 5.7 being felt in Pollock Pines is quite remarkable. So not saying it's not a 5.7, but that is, again, pretty bizarre because that is a long ways away. Even some anecdotal reports, not people directly saying this, but telephone game as of right now of people feeling this in Sacramento. Now that would really, if that is confirmed, and there are field reports in Sacramento for 5.7 Nevada, it's probably not a 5.7. The bigger story here, and we're going to talk more about this earthquake, the swarm. We're going to look at this, the history of earthquakes in this area. We're going to do it in real time. Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Stefan Burns, geologist, geophysicist, space weather guy, someone that's just trying to understand what's happening with the Earth energetically, the sun, the solar system, cosmos, more. I bring all those things together, present videos almost daily, either a video or a live stream. Things of that nature. I also have a clips channel where I post short form videos. It's like 5 to 12 minutes. That's at Stefan Burns Clips. It's linked in video description. My X account is at Stefan Burns Geo, linked in video description. Anyways, all that stuff out of the way. Is that we also saw another earthquake swarm just 24 hours ago. Nearby. So when you start to get this clustering of significant events, then your eyebrows start to go up a little bit. At least mine do. And that other earthquake swarm, let me switch here our data to, instead of just being the past 24 hours, the past 7 days. And if we look here, you'll see this other earthquake swarm here along the boundary between the Juan to Fuca plate and the Pacific plate. And this specifically is a transform plate boundary where you're having an active creation of oceanic crust here. And now it's not like we don't get these sort of earthquake swarms along these transform boundaries, these mid-ocean ridges, etc. But this one right here is the furthest south that earthquake activity has crept along this Juan to Fuca Pacific plate boundary right in the zone since the 2020s. So this is the first time we've had earthquake activity in here for the 2020s. This specific zone right there. So that's notable. And you at first glance may think that they are unrelated. And they're not unrelated. At the most basic measure, they're connected together in time. And that may be all that it is, okay? It may just be that we're having a temporal clustering of seismicity for the continental United States and North American zone right here, right now, April 12th, April 13th, 2026. That could be it. But there are some geologic connections here. And you'd be surprised that there are connections between the Juan de Fuca plate and Nevada. So we'll talk about that more. I'm not saying these are definitively linked in more ways than just temporally, but we will explore that idea because we do often see, if you track global earthquake activity, seismicity, etc., you see these recurring patterns and trends. And this is what you need to do if you want to be an earthquake forecaster of any reasonable success in just tracking high magnitude events, is you need to track these earthquake patterns. And most people don't think earthquake forecasting is possible. It's very difficult, and you have to get location, time, and magnitude right, and so it's difficult to get all three. Though it has been done, there are preliminary signs that help you focus in at times. We've done it on the channel, the magnitude 8.8 megaquake Kamchatka. That was done pretty much perfect 3 days before it happened. Multiple quakes outside of that, Myanmar 7.7, 7.6 Japan. I mean, a whole bunch of stuff. But you need to be tracking this stuff. And so the point of me saying all that is when you track these earthquake rhythms and patterns, you start to see how the globe is more interconnected than some people think. Because remember, really zoom out, look at society, culture, everything. Science over the past 500 years has taught us to slice and dice and dissect and to basically put things into new categories, new buckets, and to separate us from a holistic worldview. And that is in many ways a mistake. So we will talk about how the entire Farallon plate, which is now subducted under the North American plate, connects these two together, potentially. Now, this earthquake here in Nevada is only 5 kilometers down. So that's shallow. So that's not going to be from the subducted Farallon plate. But there is geology connecting these two locations. And maybe there are some other mechanisms evolved that we're unaware of. Perhaps this was an earthquake driven by hydrothermal activity. And that's coming up. And that's why we're seeing a swarm. And that is fundamentally maybe coming up from this plate underneath North America. We'll explore it all. Keep an open mind. But the data is that right now, this 5.7 here is the strongest earthquake for the past week. If I click this off, we see that this 5.7 takes the cake for the week. Now, it's been a quiet week seismically, but it's not always the case. Let me show you something really quick. We'll go to my website, earthevolution.com/store. Is where most people go because I sell a variety of holistic wellness products. You see that I have herbal tea blends here, all organic, made and mixed in-house. There's also merchandise and more. Recommend you check it out if you like what I do, want to support what I do. But you can also click up here to the live data tab. And this takes you to the Earth Analytics page where I have a variety of data feeds from different sources hosted. And so we see Schumann resonances, we see global seismic activity level. Let me turn myself off again. You see that we had this global seismic burst here back at the end of March, going through the very beginning of April. So it lasted about 2 weeks here. No, not even 2 weeks. It lasted about 10 days. And we very well may be going to into another global seismic burst soon because of space weather factors. So one thing that I look at for earthquake forecasting is where is the activity right now? That often is the best clue for where it's going to continue going because you see preliminary activity often. Foreshock sequences, swarming. Again, it's not 100%. Sometimes you just have a swarm and that's it. It's just a swarm. But often you do get, foreshocks leading up to it. We saw that with Japan in November and December of 2025. We had a clustering of magnitude 5s in November. I reported on it saying, hey, I think something bigger is coming because this is anomalous. Then we got a 6.4, 6.8. It's like, okay, it's ramping up. Then we had a 7.6 in December. So you see how this works. So where you have activity is where you need to be paying attention. At least it's a higher likelihood of occurrence, right? Forecasting is all about assigning probabilities to different outcomes and doing that to your best ability, and hopefully you get the percentages right. This isn't a Nostradamus or Brostradamus prediction, okay? Just trust me, bro. We're looking at the data and doing our best to assign probabilities to the different outcomes. And of course, the Earth also is a wild card. There's a lot of chaos here, so you don't fully get it every single time, of course. But let's check out what's happening with the space weather really quick, because this will inform you as to why I think we're potentially going back into another global seismic burst. Because we have here our sun. This is looking at extreme ultraviolet light emissions from the sun. There's a variety of ways that we can look at this, okay? We can only get these sort of EUV measurements from outer space, because normally X-rays and extreme ultraviolet light from the sun gets absorbed into the atmosphere of the Earth. So unless you're in space, you cannot see this. There's different ways of viewing the sun, sunspots and such on the surface, but you can specifically only see these angstrom views from space. Now, because we have these cameras in space, we are able to see more finely detailed structures and layers of the sun. Here we're looking at the solar corona. This is the outermost atmosphere of the sun. Many of you have heard me talk about this many times, so welcome back to class. But for those of you that are new, the sun has different layers. There is an outer layer. This is like the atmosphere of the sun, known as the corona. It's millions of degrees Kelvin. Kelvin is very similar to Celsius. So think millions of degrees Celsius, millions of degrees Fahrenheit, basically, right? Very, very hot. It's made up of plasma, the fourth state of matter. You have solids, liquids, gases, plasma. Well, what's that sequence? Solids are, all contained. The molecular structure is frozen, and there's a slight vibration to it, but not that much. Liquids, all of a sudden, these intermolecular or interatomic bonds, they can break, and now the things can move past each other. Think like water. H2O molecules are now moving past each other, only lightly bonded together via hydrogen bonds. That's special to water and some other compounds that have the dipoles to them. You heat that up some more, they can fly off from each other. Now you have gas molecules, and they basically repel each other, and they have less density and more energy. So you get this natural stratification of basically matter based off of its level of energy that it has. So solids are closer down, then you have liquids, then you have gases, and then you have plasma, because plasma takes a gas and ionizes it so much that it actually splits these molecules apart. So now you have particles flying around. So it's very, very energetic. We're looking at the outermost atmosphere of the sun, the corona, all these plasma particles, basically. Where it shows up black is where there is a deficiency in plasma. So there isn't any corona there. These are known as coronal holes. We see time and time again when there are large coronal holes on the Earth-facing side in the center to geoaffected position. So this zone right here, okay? When they are right there, we often see high magnitude earthquakes. There are a few ideas as to why. We don't fully understand the mechanisms, but the correlations are very clear. And the thing is with correlation is that you have to look to make it causal, you have to look for what the causal agent is. And well, there's few things that could be more causal than the sun. Very few, right? If we're talking about some mundane thing, yeah, maybe you get the causality mixed up. But when we're talking about the sun, which if you were able to turn off the sun because you're God, Earth would go cold and dark and lifeless very, very, very quick. And the energy output from the sun is fundamentally what's driving our climate and our geophysical system, and therefore our geologic system on Earth since the beginning. There's some internal processes, but in general, without the sun, everything's turned off. Hard to get more causal than that, okay? So we have this very strong correlation, probably causal connection between these coronal holes and high magnitude earthquakes. They emit high speed streams of solar wind because if you didn't know, the sun is always blasting plasma out into space. It forms this spiral pattern, And the reason why they're emitting these high speed streams of plasma faster than normal, because the magnetic field here is in this configuration that this kind of extends into space rather than looping back in on itself. And so as a result, this plasma gets vacuumed up and blasted off into space. So when you have these transequatorial coronal holes that are large, right? This one's not 100% transequatorial. It is skewed more towards the northern hemisphere. But when they're big and they're really not in the polar regions, like they're right in this zone here, then it will hit Earth with that magnetic field, with the solar wind, and we are now embedded in a completely different plasma environment in space for 2, 3, 4 days. The solar wind has structure to it. It's not homogeneous. You have these high density plasma shocks followed by these high velocity, low density streams. It's always changing things. It's compressing Earth's magnetic field. It's expanding it out. There's this regular rhythm and flow to it. Earth's magnetic field penetrates down through the crust. It goes through the mantle, down into the core. That's where it's from, right? Everything's connected together. So these are very important to track as it relates to earthquake activity. This guy was here, guess what? Last time it was Earth-facing and geoeffective was when we had that global seismic burst that I just showed you. The one right here, okay? That big sequence of activity, magnitude 7.5 Tonga, 7.3 Vanuatu, 7.4 Indonesia. There was also quite a lot of magnitude 6 activity. That all was during the last transit of this coronal hole. And now it's rotating back. 4 more will be geoeffective in about 6 days or so, maybe 7. It'll be in the center position in about 4. So that takes us to the 17th through the 20th, let's say. Well, that's exactly when we have some critical planetary geometry, which is also well connected to a clustering of seismic events. You can look at that track record, especially when there's multiple planetary alignments happening at the same time, not just one, but like multiple overlapping, and there's this convergence of 3, 4, 5, or 6. That's when you really start to see these high magnitude earthquakes start to pop off. We have that also happening from the 17th to 23rd of April. Like that's the most focused window, but we're already in the main planetary alignment, which is Earth, Mercury, Mars, Saturn, Neptune, all in a line. So that's quite significant. We also have a comet flying in for perihelion just outside the orbit of Mercury on April 19th. This is C2025 R3 Pan-STARRS, and it forms a perfect Sun-Comet-Earth alignment on the 25th and 26th of April. So you see that there's a lot happening. Now we're starting to see increased seismicity for the western part of the continental United States, and definitely it's effectively what's happening right now is causing me to look at things more closely and to raise the alert level. There's no guarantee of something bigger. It'd be foolish to issue a forecast saying 100% guaranteed. If we, let's say tomorrow, though, saw a significant uptick, like a seismic burst in the Bay Area or SoCal, then I would really start to get concerned, like really concerned. But we're not seeing that yet. What we are seeing is this swarm here, which these do occur in this divergent plate boundary. This one specifically, though, in this location, hasn't had any earthquake activity in 6 years in the 2020s. And then this 5.7 being quite unique, now made up of how many events? 49 overall events. So the United States is a place to watch as we go into that critical planetary geometry, as we go into that space weather and the coronal hole high-speed stream. So basically, April 15th to 25th is really that critical time window of when things could really get rocking. Okay. So I just want to show you before we go on, we have some other space weather stuff to talk about because we had a big coronal mass ejection today, like a really big one launching out towards these planets in the alignment and towards Mercury, towards Mars and Saturn. But before that, I want to look at this post that I put up on X and just get some of the people who have felt this and read out their responses, okay? because I think that I think this is valuable for just anyone who's interested in this stuff and wants to know what this earthquake was actually like. You know, maybe the 5.7 is a little bit of an undercut on the magnitude. I mean, if you're feeling it in Sacramento, I mean, I'm not sure anyone did, but there are some reports of that. So I felt it in Truckee, California, which is pretty far away. This is the only reference I have for the Sacramento thing, but that would be double the distance from Truckee. I felt it in Reno, a long rolling quake, multiple aftershocks. I felt it in Carnelian Bay, North Lake Tahoe. I felt these earthquakes in Nevada. Really strong in Stagecoach, 13 miles northwest from the epicenter. No comparison to Northridge, that's 1994 SoCal, but it was very strong, according to James. Felt in Pollock Pines, California, Tiffany Moore. Again, that's like pretty far away, folks. 5.7 in Pollock Pines, I'm like, what? That's a little bizarre. And felt it in Reno. So those are the responses to that, and I'm sure some people are commenting in the chat as well, so I will look that up. Here's someone right here, Sequoia Raven Moon, saying she felt it in Sacramento. That's pretty wild. So that is, yeah, I mean, that's pretty far away. I don't think you should probably be able to hear a 5.7 in Sacramento. I just simply don't think that's going to be the case. But, you know, I don't necessarily doubt Sequoia Raven Moon. I think most of the people that subscribe to my channel are good, honest people who are just interested in this. So there is there's a lot happening. Let's look at the historic seismicity for that area. But before we do that, I want to show you this other thing that's been happening with the sun, because we had this big explosion on the sun just before this. I posted this to my X account as a dedicated little video. I'll play that for you right now. So if you want to really stay up to date on everything I'm doing, you can go there. X and Twitter is also just, I don't know, I'm just not a fan of it in general. But at the same time, it's great for posting breaking updates and small form clips and such. So, you know, everyone likes different things. I want to be there to help people that like that place. So let us look here. Here we see the huge explosion from the sun's far side on today, the 13th of April. So this is our 304 angstrom view. Again, this is only a view of the sun that you can get from space because it's EUV imagery. This is not Earth directed. Right from the get-go, this is not Earth directed. That's good. But we see this huge coronal mass ejection go out. And so this is going not just sideways. This isn't from the limb exactly. This is the western limb. This is the eastern limb. It's backwards because it's solar coordinate system. So we're looking at it from the sun's perspective. This is actually going off, maybe I can use this hand to do it. It's kind of difficult with my angle. It's going off like that way, okay? See that? It's kind of going like this in space. So it's not going exactly this way. It's going like that way, okay? So it's not going exactly opposite the Earth either. It's like that 45-degree angle in between. But this is a big coronal mass ejection. If you watch this stuff, you know this is not tiny. Coronal mass ejection is an ejection of mass from the corona. So to put it in probably better terms, honestly, it's a huge wave of plasma being sent off into space. That's what that is. And if we look at our planetary geometry really quick, we'll see the direction that this is going. So let me show you this. This will be pretty quick. Here we see our planetary geometry. We see this alignment that's forming here. This is Mercury, Earth, Mercury, Mars, Saturn, Neptune. And so this is today. If we go opposite the Earth, that's right here, okay? This is going about a 45-degree angle. This is going to hit Mars. This is going to hit Saturn. This eventually will go out to Neptune, though it is kind of traveling south of the ecliptic plane. but we just had this huge explosion sent off before this planetary alignment goes into exactitude, let's say, which is really around the 20th of April, like 19th and 20th. It would take about 3 to 4 days to reach Earth, and Mars is 50% further from the sun than the Earth is, so make that about, let's say, 5 to 6 days, and that takes us right to when this alignment is really getting exact. So Mars is going to be energized by this solar storm right as this alignment is precise. And Mars is the planet known archetypally of energy and basically shifts and schisms and more. So really quite notable that that's happening at that time. And we can look at our coronagraph here to see this, because this is a big coronal mass ejection. We'll see it load right here. And let me get this triggered for you guys. That should do it. And it doesn't look as big as you may think, because again, it's going off at that angle like this. So it's not directly going laterally, it's actually going like that. So it's a little foreshortened, okay? But that's a big and dense coronal mass ejection right there. And if we go to our C2 view, you will see that there's like multiple pushes of plasma with this thing. So you'll see it at the end here. And it'll come pretty quick, because now we're looking a little bit more zoomed in. But see that second push of plasma, and even like a third kind of wave? There's like multiple layers of plasma being ejected from the sun. A big explosion. For reference, see that? Yeah, 1, 2, 3. This is the sun right there. We put this disk over it. It's called an occluding disk. Blocks out the light of the sun so we can see the dimmer light of the solar wind, of these solar storms, and more. So it's known as a coronagraph because we're seeing the solar corona. So you've learned a lot about coronas, okay, in today's video. But that is also active right now. And just in general, I don't really know how to explain this other than maybe through some like metaphysical quantum field, morphic field, like understanding. But we do have a clustering of high magnitude earthquakes with big explosions, even if they aren't Earth direct. There just seems to be these periods in time where we get big explosions on the sun just like this, and then either slightly before, right during, or slightly after, like within 24 hours of each other, a big earthquake as well. Classic example of that is last year's magnitude 7.7 that struck Burma, Myanmar, Thailand, March 28th, 2025. We had a huge explosion from the eastern limb of the sun. And that was actually still registered as a 1.1 X-class flare, but it did not, it was like this huge thing that went off. The timing was crazy. We just had one recently too with a big explosion and then a big earthquake. So you get this sort of clustering too. I don't really fully know how to explain that. I think there are some deeper levels here that we just haven't really touched into scientifically yet that connect everything together. And well, in 500 years or maybe 50 years, we'll know a bit more about that, certainly. So that also happened today. This has been a pretty big day energetically. And just to show you quickly as well, before we get back to the geology, here we have our website zoom.earth to track weather. And we have a super typhoon right now barreling across Guam and across, what is this? I think this is the, not the Virgin Islands. It's like the northern something islands. I'm sorry, let me pull it up here. I don't like to, I'm usually pretty good with geography, but I'm not perfect. And I don't know every single little island. I've been to Guam before. Guam's great. Northern Mariana Islands, okay? So it's about to hit the Northern Mariana Islands. And this is a super typhoon. So this is pretty much comparable in strength to Hurricane Melissa last year. And this is the earliest typhoon for the northern, I mean, it's April, right? We have a super typhoon in April, folks. And it's basically at its limit considering the temperature of the water. Because you can make really accurate forecasts for cyclones right? Hurricanes, typhoons, cyclones, all the same thing. You make really accurate forecasts for them based off of the temperature of the water. Other things, of course, are important, but that's like the number one thing. This thing's at its maximum theoretical strength for the ocean temperature right now. 250 kilometers per hour sustained winds, and the pressure on it, 919, but it even dropped down to 896 right here. So it's been crazy, okay? And that right now is slamming into Guam and the Northern Marianas Islands. We also had a tornado outbreak today in the continental US. I don't know exactly where. I think it was like kind of central, but maybe some weather people can comment on that. And there's also these huge fires right now occurring near Naples, Florida. We also have an earthquake swarm occurring around Puerto Rico. So there's just a ton of energy right now for all the different provinces and states and territories of the United States, which is very interesting, especially when you bring in the geopolitical context about how all the things the United States, or at least the United States government, is doing. I don't think the people are really behind this for the most part, but the United States government is doing a lot of things geopolitically right now. And now we're seeing the natural disasters, we're seeing the earthquakes, we're seeing the fires, we're seeing the tornadoes. I mean, it's just not, I don't know, I just don't think it's good karma. But we'll move on from that. Let us look at the historic earthquake activity for this location. We'll do it together, we're doing it live, and we'll pull that up by searching the catalog here. And let's search this going all the way back to the year 2000. So January 1st, 2000. And we'll set this for magnitude 5 and greater. Magnitude 5 and greater. Nevada gets earthquakes, okay? It's not like Nevada never gets earthquakes. It's still notable when they do, though, when they happen. There's Lake Tahoe, so that should definitely cover our region. See what's happened for the past 26 years. And here we go. Put it on our satellite view. 6.5 there, Monte Cristo range. That was back in 2020, the 15th of May. Here is a magnitude 6, Antelope Valley, California, 2021. This is the 8th of July. Everything else less than magnitude 6 for the selected region. We do see a 5.7 there that occurred just about a year and a half ago. So this is a 5.7 just to the south. December 9th, 2024, the Parker Butte earthquake, 2024. And now we have our 5.7 Silver Springs. Interesting about this one. See, this is why you study this stuff, because if you track this regularly, you keep a mental log of notable events. That is right around the time we had the magnitude 7 off the triple point here for, guess what? The Juan de Fuca plate. And we'll talk more about the Juan de Fuca plate, the Farallon plate, and more. And then we'll do a Q&A. If I didn't mention it, by the way, we're doing a Q&A. If you have a question, ask in the chat when we do that. At the same time, if you want your question answered, you can ask it with a super thanks, and I have a list of those, and I just go through all of them. So we see that this 5.7 here, that was the 9th of December. I'm going to just write this down, okay? 5.7, the 9th of 2024. And let's go back to our catalog, and let's just simply expand our box here to include that triple point location. And we'll see that magnitude 7 and the clustering of it. Now, a lot more magnitude 5 events and beyond show up now because we get a lot of seismicity there. But look at that. Magnitude 7 on the 5th of December 2024, and then just here, what was this, 4 days later, we get a magnitude 5.7 in Nevada in 2024. So we now have 2 examples of temporal clustering between the Juan de Fuca plate and the earthquakes around Carson City, Nevada, more specifically around Silver Springs. Why may that be? Let's explore into it. Here we have well, let's go back to Google Earth to start. And someone just said there was a magnitude 5.5 Marianas Islands. I think something like that. So maybe we pull it up really quick. Let's go here. Northern Marianas Islands. So we have a stormquake, baby. See, this is how everything's connected. We have a Category 5 super typhoon barreling across Guam and the Marianas Islands, and now you have a 5.5 earthquake pop off right now as it's overhead. Again, this one is right here, and they often happen at the edge of the cyclone too, by the way. That's another thing. If you research into this, you find that they often happen at the edge of the cyclone, and guess what? That's exactly where it is right now. See the islands? It's right at the edge. So crazy stuff, crazy stuff. I love it. I think it's, I mean, I don't like destruction. I like learning about the earth. I like learning about the sun, the connections, all this. And I just pray for the best. Thankfully, often these events don't happen in ways that could be much more destructive, but sometimes they do. Hurricane Melissa over Jamaica. The magnitude 7.7 that hit Burma, Myanmar, Thailand. These are very destructive events. The magnitude 6 that hit Afghanistan recently. They can be very destructive. But if we go back here, we see our plate boundaries for basically North America, okay? And we have our magnitude 5.7 right there. Here is the San Andreas Fault. Here is the Gulf of California. Here is the Juan de Fuca plate. If you go a little further south, you have the Cocos plate, okay? And if you don't know this, you think, oh, we have a microplate there, cool story. Guess what? They're actually connected together. The larger plate has been subducted underneath the North American plate, and it's known as the Farallon plate. So the thing is, on the surface, these may seem unconnected, because you have this plate all the way down here, south of Mexico, where there's still subduction. And they have the Juan de Fuca plate all the way up here off the coast of Oregon, Washington, and Vancouver, British Columbia, where there's subduction. You get magnitude 9s here, by the way. Not on the divergent plate boundary, but in the subduction zone itself, you can get magnitude 8s, magnitude 9s. And moderators, if there's someone spamming, just ban them immediately, all right? Don't even bother with them. If they're ruining the chat, just get rid of them. So they are connected together. Let's see how. We can look here, and I just simply typed in on search Farallon plate subduction, because at the end of the day, we have a lot of theories. We don't exactly know. We have a lot of evidence via earthquakes and seismic studies and such, but at the end of the day, we don't really, everything's a theory. We don't have 100% God gave us the commandment truth of, okay, what's the Farallon plate look like under North America? So it's useful to look at some different depictions. And like, for example, this one here, we see the Farallon plate subducting down. Here we see it subducting down, but it kind of went horizontal, then it subducted down. Here we see it just kind of went horizontal. Here we see flat subduction. These are different ideas that could help explain the basin and range that we see across Nevada and some of the nearby states like Utah, Colorado, the Colorado Plateau, the Rocky Mountains. Like, there's a lot of conversation trying to understand why we have certain features the way we do. And so the Farallon plate, most of the evidence is that it's not as subducted down as, it's not like a straight vertical subduction. There are some places where that occurs. For example, Tonga, Fiji, Kermadec Trench, that area, that's where it really goes straight down, right down through the mantle to the core mantle boundary. That's what we see with the earthquakes. They just start to go down, cluster linearly. But here with North America off the west coast, this old plate, which is still at the surface with the Juan de Fuca plate and the Cocos plate, is not as descending as steeply. So if we go back here, we see that in fact, these two are connected because the entire Farallon Plate is sitting underneath North America. The whole thing is underneath North America. Now again, this 5.7 earthquake was only at 5 kilometers down, very shallow. It was like 7 to 10 seconds of shaking, very shallow. So that was not a deep earthquake in the subducted slab of the Farallon Plate. But maybe there's some hydrothermal component linking them, whatever. Like it's just, I just want to make that clear. It's not down 200 kilometers or something. But we do know that fundamentally these plates here these microplates are connected together via the larger Farallon Plate, which is an old geologic structure. We're talking tens of millions of years old. And it's interesting that we're seeing back to back 18 earthquake swarm here with the Juan de Fuca plate right next to the axial seamound, which is a hotspot spreading center. And then we have just a hot spot, you know, like a mantle plume hot spot. And yeah, this is a whole spreading center right there. And then you also have this earthquake there. Last time we saw clustering, we saw 5.7 there. The 9th of December 2024, we had the magnitude 7 at the triple point, basically right here on the 5th of December 2024. So you see how this is mirroring itself across time, showing basically the evidence is suggesting, the observational evidence is suggesting that there are larger regional dynamics that are unfolding here and do so at a regular recurrent interval geologically. And if you pay attention, you'll notice it. And that is our clue into the more accurate, truthful geologic situation that exists. Just because you have maybe a fancy calculation or model doesn't mean that you're accurately representing something, right? You have to go data and observation driven to really see what's happening. Okay, so here we can see a useful graphic. I'll turn myself off for this. And 40 million years ago, here's what they depict the Farallon Plate looked like. You see, here's the Juan de Fuca plate today, but you see that they're actually connected together because there's this long transform section there, offsetting these two mid-ocean ridges. 20 million years ago, that transformed plate boundary now starts to become the San Andreas, but it's off the coast. And this is, you know, this isn't going to be accurate either at the end of the day, but it's going to be fairly close, I would say. Here's the Juan de Fuca plate. There's the Cocos plate. Now you see today, you have the Juan de Fuca plate, you have the San Andreas, you have the Cocos plate. So that entire plate has gone underneath. Mostly, almost the entire plate has gone underneath the North American plate. And it's also connected together. Like that's still one cohesive block unit. That's what I think some people don't understand, is that geology seems to move in blocks. We see that very simply with earthquakes. Like all of a sudden you get a magnitude 7, boom, 5 meters of movement. And it happens quick, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes for like a magnitude 9 or something, right? So it's just boom, big block movement. These are all connected together. And if we have this old Farallon plate dipping into the mantle like this, fundamentally there are, you know, dynamics holding it together, still a cohesive unit to some degree. Yeah, there's going to be alteration and things breaking it down in the mantle and such, but it's cold, it's dense, it's going to be a long-lived structure across geologic time. So we can look, is that the last thing I wanted to show you for that? Maybe it is. Yeah, so we can't definitively say that there isn't a connection. That's the thing. When we see this effectively being one of the leading geologic models, that there is this semi or flat subduction of the Farallon plate, and we're seeing this activity being mirrored in 2024 and now in 2026 between the Juan de Fuca plate and Nevada, temporally within a week of each other. It's pretty interesting. So that's the main presentation I wanted to give you. I guess the one thing that I touched on in the thumbnail, but I didn't touch on yet, is just one other factor to be aware of, which is when you have earthquake activity, that is a release of seismic energy. And, well, the bigger the earthquake, the more energy is released. That energy will load onto any fault that it passes through. So if it's a big earthquake, it can actually load a significant amount of stress and strain onto a fault. If it's not a big earthquake, it's, could be negligible. But fundamentally, seismic energy passing over a fault is going to add a little bit more stress to it. And the ways that faults work is that they build up their stress until they reach a critical stress threshold, and then they slip. And that trigger mechanism of when they slip often seems to be the space weather in those big coronal holes, okay? Because it seems the outer space plasma environment, it appears, has an influence over the pressure and the tectonic system at a global scale. That's the best understanding that I have. And it's not just me. There's others who've been talking about and researching into this and writing papers on this and more. So yeah, I'm informed by them, and I've done my own, tracking and all this stuff. But that's kind of the leading idea. So that's all happening right now. So when we're having big activity, relatively big activity, right, for the western part of the United States, 5.7, biggest earthquake in the past week globally, and this area typically is pretty quiet, you should be paying attention. And really, you add in the swarm up here. Let's go back to our 7-day. You add in the swarm up there. You also add in all this activity off the coast of Puerto Rico. Look at that. Normally, it's clustered over here. Now it's spread out across all of Puerto Rico. We even had a 4.2 here. Check that out. 4.2. So that's also showing activity at a different part of the North American plate. So the entire North American plate right now is showing signs of increased activity. Whether we get a larger plate shift to occur, and let's say a magnitude 6, magnitude 7, magnitude 8, God forbid magnitude 9, it is possible. We could have a magnitude 9 earthquake in the Cascadia subduction zone here tomorrow, 1 week from now, a month from now. It could be 5 minutes from now. It could also be 50 years from now. It could be 250 years from now. We don't know. But we know that that area gets big earthquakes, magnitude 8 plus, up to magnitude 9, and the reoccurrence rate for that's like 250 years or so. Last one was the year 1700. It's been a long time. Geology doesn't stop. It just keeps going forward. Plate tectonics is a slow force, but it is a steady force. It is the tortoise that won the race, and we live on human time. In geologic time, it's much more vast than us, except for when it precipitates down to that human moment and the ground is shaking underneath your feet and you're like, what the heck is happening, okay? That is when the timelines all converge. Geologic time, human time, all the same moment. So it's important to track this stuff. That's what I do on the channel with more than just earthquakes, with a whole bunch of things. So if you enjoyed this, then please subscribe to the channel. Click that thumbs up button, smash it, whatever you want to do. Help this channel grow, expand this video to a wider audience. And with that, we will begin our question and answer. So if you have any questions, you can ask it in the chat. I'll take a few from the chat before moving on to the questions that have come in via super thanks, of which I'm seeing one right now. So if you want to make sure your question is answered, then attach it to a super thanks of any amount and I will answer that question, but we will do some from the general chat as well. Thank you all for being here. I hope you're all doing well. I hope those of you that felt the quake in Nevada didn't really have too much damage to any belongings that you have, or for example, like your foundation. I know someone commented on they're worried about the foundation cracking. 5.7 can be big. When we had a magnitude 5 in Napa, it was actually a 4.9. They revised it to a 4.9 back in the year 2000. That knocked a lot of chimneys down. It can cause some structural damage. So 5.7 is not anything to just scoff at. Now, it's not a magnitude 8 with 3 minutes of rolling motion or something that's going to like level a city maybe, but it can cause some damage. So I hope that everyone was fine. I'm sure we'll get some reports. I'm sure there's probably some damage from it, but hopefully it's fine. Let's actually look at our, before we have the questions coming in, so I'll look at them. But here we see our internet intensity map from the USGS, and we see that it's moderate shaking, light and moderate shaking right around the epicenter, and then some people felt weak shaking even down to, like, again, Truckee, Tahoe, and further into the Sierra Nevada. So pretty significant. I think we can also, can we see the, oh, here we go. Maybe this is it. I'm not sure if this is showing reports or not. Reported intensity are these circles. Yeah, it's showing just the edge of Sacramento. So a lot of people feeling this quake. I'm surprised that they're feeling this 5.7 so much. Honestly, like down in Sacramento, that's pretty wild. Okay, we'll do some questions now from the chat. And let's get right into it. Here is new subscriber Danielle. Hello and welcome. Felt in Stockton. Wow, felt in Stockton. Probably not a big feel, but still a felt in Stockton. That's pretty wild. Let my people know ministry. What evidence exists for subduction? Earth is expanding instead. So, well, we have a lot of evidence for subduction, mainly earthquakes. Earthquakes themselves, if you build up the database, which we have, show these clear structures going deeper into the earth, namely like these subduction slabs. And we also have big earthquakes that happen. For example, we can measure those seismic waves across the entire globe and start to create these more detailed structural maps of the earth. And so this gives us a view of, for example, low shear wave velocity provinces within the mantle, or core mantle boundary features, and features of the asthenosphere, and more. So we see these subducted slabs within the mantle via this, and also like gravity measurements. We have things of that nature. Like, there's more than just seismic data that we can look at. We can look at the geoid anomaly map, which is the gravity anomaly map, and more. And we see evidence of this. So now Earth is expanding. There is this chemical differentiation process that's always unfolding across the universe effectively. So I don't think Earth has expanded from, let's say, like the size of a grapefruit out to what it is now. I mean, it has grown via planetesimal accretion. So, I mean, Earth is technically always expanding as it gets more and more material. How much of that expansion is driven by, let's say, chemical differentiation through processes occurring in the mantle? That's an open question. Maybe like 5%, 10%. It's not going to be like 50% or something. But it's an interesting thing to think about for sure. Especially if you start leaning back into learning about the solar system, its evolution. A great book you can read for that. It's right here, Evolution of the Solar System by Hans Alvin. I think he had a co-author for this too. Yeah, no, just Hans Alvin, I think. And this goes into basically the best ideas of how the solar system formed. And this is through accretionary processes. Earth did that too. So technically Earth is expanding. It's not a conspiracy or anything. And Stefan Huntley Music, hello. Stefan, my man, boom. Stefan, Stefano, Stefan. Do you believe in hotspot volcanism? Is it caused by impacts to Earth from meteors and comets? Yeah, I've talked about that before. I actually have a clip of that on my clips channel. It's like the first clip I think I posted. That was from a live stream and a question and answer. I think there's a lot to that. I think that it's very possible that some of the mantle plumes and hotspots are created from old remnant impact events, like a planetesimal impact. The current idea for the evolution of the moon, and it's not 100% by the way, but the current idea for the evolution of the moon is that you had this protoplanet Theia impacting Earth. Theia was smaller, and then a lot of it got flung out and became the moon. Excuse me. But you would have a lot more impacts than just Theia. You would also have planetesimal impacts, 50 kilometers across, 100 kilometers across. That's a big impact. Now, this is billions of years ago, but that could have what got the whole process started with convection of the mantle, and you have chemical differentiation. You have like heavy metals like iron sinking down to the core. That's creating this thermal equilibrium, driving everything. So yeah, big enough impacts from whatever, if they're able to pierce down into the, through the crust, which is relatively thin, especially as it's coming at really high velocity, pierce through the crust and start sinking down because it has a lot of metallic content, it could then potentially drive this mantle upwelling as a result. And maybe 500 years later, because the pattern was created, it's then maintained. So yeah, it's not a question of belief though. I think it's a very compelling idea worthy of more exploration. And Antonia is asking about how do you think this will affect the central United States? Everything is connected. Have you heard about the crack in the bottom of the Mississippi? Is that true? I don't know if that's true. I know that a lot of people online run with like maybe a story and then they expand it out tremendously. So, I mean, the Mississippi is a river. So you know, a crack is like what? There's a crack and there's water going even deeper down. It's like a chasm in the Mississippi. I don't know. It just, I don't think it's true. Maybe I've never seen any photos of this crack in the Mississippi. Let's see what pops up, because viral video claims Mississippi River is draining into the New Madrid Fault. Cracks ripped through the Mississippi River. Yeah, I'm just seeing a whole bunch of like AI YouTube videos on this. So I don't think there's any truth to it. Or else I would have actually looked into it. Though I'm not the end all, but yeah, I'm just seeing this from a whole bunch of bad news websites and AI videos. But as it relates to the first part of your question, is everything connected? Well, everything is connected, but how will it affect the central United States? I'll just give you the example of 1811, 1812, okay? You had two quakes hit California at the end of 1812. Before that, though, you had, in the very end of 1811, you had a whole seismic sequence hit the New Madrid Fault system. Going into about March of 1812, you had a big earthquake in Venezuela, and then you had these two earthquakes in California. So we had a big clustering activity for North America and also Venezuela, South America, but basically that theater of the earth in 1811, within 1 year, 1811, 1812. So yeah, I don't think that those earthquakes were totally disconnected from each other. Now, if it was just the Venezuela quake and the New Madrid, okay, maybe. But you had California, New Madrid, and Venezuela all forming kind of a triangle. I can show you on the map. Probably something to it. So here, actually forming almost more of a line. But here we would have, you know, Venezuela down here. Quake occurred like at this zone. And then you have New Madrid here, and then you have California roughly here. So that all happened in 1811, 1812. I personally don't think that's coincidence. I think there's probably some geologic processes unfolding that involve these plates, and there was like kind of a follow-up sequence to all of it. Okay, lots of questions and comments have come in. Felt in Roseville, California. This is a big earthquake, folks. I'm not sure it's a 5.7. I mean, I'm not really one for saying that the USGS is altering seismic magnitudes, but this seems to be bigger than that. Seems to be bigger than that. Let's go to our super thanks questions, see what we got. New members, thank you all so much. Thank you, Fat Boy Kicks. Thank you, Tressa, for the memberships that you gifted, and Funcrafter 50. Boom, that is awesome. A boom shakalaka to you and for everyone that got a membership because of that. Shannon AZ, checked my email and got my USGS alert for Nevada. Instead of myself, I bet Stefan is live, and boom shakalaka, here I am. That is right. I jump on this when I can, as fast as I can, with accuracy. So glad to witness this epic gifting. Member for 17 months. Rachie, thank you so much. Carol, thank you for the super thanks. And another one from you. Thank you so much. So if Cascadia has a big event, will we in Northern Nevada also have a big event? My son lives in Portland. I live in Reno. Well, I mean, maybe. We just talked about 2024 and now 2026 about how we're seeing mirrored activity with the Juan de Fuca and Plate and Nevada. So, I mean, I can't give you a definitive answer there, but I wouldn't just immediately, like, I think a mainstream person would just immediately scoff and be like, oh, what a dumb question. And maybe I'm wrong. There are certainly some geologists and geoscientists that are open-minded but working for the official agencies. But they're few and far between. So the official stance and the official communication from these groups, most of them connected to the government, right? How much? Yeah. Most of them connected to government will say, no, completely unrelated. So take that for what it's worth. There's just a lot more to this story than what we're often being told. And there's also a track record of these organizations downplaying the risk of things and saying, oh, don't worry, it's not a big deal. It's totally routine and normal. It's like, we haven't seen this for 20 years. This isn't routine or normal. But anyways, that's just a hypothetical example. We see that all the time though. Brandon, thank you for the super sticker. That is awesome. Thanks for being a supporter. And Melrose, thank you for the super thanks. My brother and I listen to you. Appreciate your knowledge. Thank you so much. And we talked about that one already from my brother from a different mother. So 4701, how much longer should the man in the sun image last? I was thinking about this because I saw it come in earlier. I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about, but I think you're probably seeing some sort of image of the man. I mean, maybe you're talking about the two eyes and the mouth and the nose here. I don't know. But it's just going to rotate out of view eventually. So we have that for maybe a few more days. I mean, I definitely see two eyes, a nose, and a mouth, but I don't know what you guys see. There's always weird things popping up on the sun. If you look at the views that show the corona and the coronal holes, it's actually very interesting. That's a whole different topic and video. Thanks for the super thanks. B. Woodward, thank you for the super thanks. You are the Lewis and Clark of space weather. Keep up your inquisitive direction. Boom shakalaka, thank you so much. That is awesome. And Tris Lifts. On the 19th, it will be 120 years since the last San Andreas fault rupture. What do you think it's possible? Do you think it's possible for it to rupture around the same time? It's possible. I mean, we're overdue for a lot of faults in California. And they're being loaded by all this activity. They're being, altered by these things. We've had tons of coronal holes, and everywhere else on Earth basically has had earthquake activity except California, or Oregon, Washington. So thankfully, they have these long reoccurrence intervals, and it's the least active part of the Ring of Fire. At some point, though, it's going to happen. So we pray it doesn't. At some point, it will. Play my sister's footage of the 5.7 quake in Silver Springs, Nevada. Watch the red car the first 10 seconds. Okay, I know where this is from. This should be from my post on X. So I hope you posted it there. Because when I checked my email, I didn't get anything from you. But let's see what you said. Let's see if I can find your comment. I'm not exactly sure. Okay, there we go. We got it. So let's play this video from our boy Jimmy. Thank you for doing this. This is awesome. I love it that we're getting footage live from this. So let's get it over here. And there's going to be some desktop audio, so I'm just going to be quiet, okay? Let's get that here. Okay. Ready? Oh, and I'll turn myself off. Watch the red car is what Jim is saying. That's the shaking. And one more time, just to count how long it is. Looks like about 10 seconds. Those are the reports that I was seeing, is 7 to 10 seconds. So thanks for sharing that. It's really awesome to get that live footage just recently from the 5.7. I'm just surprised again by how widely this has been felt across Nevada and California. But that did look like a 5.7 in that video being taken from nearby, like Silver Springs. So, you know, maybe the seismic waves are just propagating very efficiently. I don't know. Typically, they propagate more efficiently through fault systems. And we don't really have too many faults cutting through perpendicular to, let's say, the San Andreas this direction. So that's a little odd. That's the thing. Most of the faults here are kind of running up through the Sierra Nevada. I mean, you have a whole bunch of mountain faults and stuff, but it's a little odd that we're getting reports from Sacramento, Stockton, Fresno. I'm surprised. So we'll leave it at that. Thank you all so much for watching, everybody. I have been your host, Stefan Burns. We'll do one last check, see how many earthquakes we have now, because it's probably now more than just, I think last count was 44. What do we got? And we close this out. 59 earthquakes now in this swarm. So 5.7 and 59 earthquakes for this swarm. Definitely, I'm now watching the rest of the western part of the United States closely. I would say there's a higher risk for a larger magnitude seismic event for this entire time period I outlined with the planetary geometry, the space weather, the coronal holes, all that stuff. So basically, rest of April, this whole area, maybe something larger happens. I think it's maybe like a 10, 15, 20% increase of the risk. Okay, so I don't think it's like imminent, we're doomed, anything like that, but certainly pay attention, be prepared, that type of deal. So that is my take-home message for you. Don't freak out about this stuff until I tell you to, okay? Because like if I'm really seeing something that's like, okay, we really need, like what we saw with Japan, then that 7.6 happened, what we saw with Kamchatka, 8.8, I'll let you guys know. But right now, I'm not necessarily concerned or freaked out, but let's just say alert level is gone from like 2 to 3. Okay, it was already at 2 because of other stuff and overdue faults. It goes to 5. Now we're maybe at like a 3. Okay, that's kind of a good way for you to understand where I am. Come to your own conclusions. Do your own research. Thank you all so much for being here. Wishing you well, and I'll see you all in the next video.